Hi Rick, thank you for coming on the channel. How are you doing?
Hello, mate. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thank you. Yeah.
Good.
I think we're best off starting by talking about the new album, which comes out in January. You've released five singles from it, and they're all brilliant songs. What can you tell us about the album?
Well, yes, you're right. It's out on the 5th of January. It's called A Matter of Time. It's our sixth studio album. Um, we have released five singles off it so far, but it's weird because in this day and age, it doesn't really feel like the singles. It just feels like the little nuggets to help push the album, really. I think the album's the key, certainly for bands like us these days. Um, I don't think we'd ever trouble any singles charts as such unless it was like an independent chart. So we don't really look at it like physical releases like 7-inch singles or anything, which is a slight shame because I used to love all of that. But yes, so to answer your question, there's five off there already. It doesn't tell the whole story. I think I'm excited for the album to be released because once people can hear it from start to finish in order, it goes on a little bit of a journey. So it's difficult for people to kind of get that yet because of not hearing it all in one go. But yeah, I mean, if you hear something like Kissing California, it's just a straight ahead 3.5 minute pop song about going out and having a blast. But that doesn't tell the story of the whole album. There's lots of ups and downs within there, and it goes off and diverges. So exciting for people to hear it, and it's difficult to explain the ones that haven't been heard yet until people have.
Is it still a bit nerve-wracking releasing singles and albums for how they're going to get received?
Yeah, I think you're always a bit apprehensive about how it's going to go down. But on the other side of that, we've been going a long time now, and we're still very Shed Seven, so we know that we're going to get a core group of people. If we write a song and go and record it, I'd be the first to know whether or not it's good enough for people to want to hear it. I'd never release anything just for the sake of releasing something and getting a quick buck out of it. So it has to work for us first for it to go anywhere near the general public. But certainly with this album, I think it's probably the best album we've ever written, which is a great thing to say when I'm 51 years old and we've been doing it for so long. And I'm really excited for people to hear it. And the reaction to the songs that people have heard so far has been really cool. So there seems to be an awful lot of love for Shed Seven at the minute, which is lovely, and long may that continue.
Yeah, if the five songs that are already out are anything to go by, it's going to be a great album. Rowetta, Pete Doherty, and Laura McClure all feature on the album. How did you come about getting them?
Well, this is funny because we've never had a guest vocalist on any of our songs in the past, and during the writing process of this one, I think we were about five songs in. We'd written about five of them, and then I'm sat at home one day listening to a guitar idea that Paul had sent me, so I could put some melody over the top of it. And I thought of this melody, and the first thing that came into my mind was that sounds like something Rowetta would sing, or how she would sing it. I mean, the song in Ecstasy is kind of it's got a bit of an early 90s vibe to it anyway. And of course, she kind of joined the Mondays in the very early 90s, and got famous through that. So she was in my mind when I was writing the melody. And then when I came up with the words for the chorus, stand with me in ecstasy, cover me in ecstasy. I just again thought, well, that sounds like something Rowetta would have sang with somebody like the Happy Mondays. So I just thought the next logical step would be just to get in touch with her. I mean, we've known Rowetta and the Happy Mondays for a long time anyway, through gigging festivals and tours and stuff. So I just said to her, Rowetta, we've written this song. I keep thinking of you. Do you want to hear it? See what you think? And she came back saying, yeah, I'd love to hear it. And then fortunately, she came back again once she'd heard it and said, I'd love to be involved in this. I love it, which is great. So she did that. And weirdly, now, whoever hears in ecstasy, the finished product is exactly how I imagined it would be when I started writing it, which is pretty cool. Um, so because we had Rowetta on board, uh, I remember playing the Bingley Festival last year, and the Libertines headlined it straight after we'd finished playing.
I was there
Uh,
that day actually.
Oh, weird. Did you go to the Bingley Festival? Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So okay. So I'm on the stage singing our hour-long set, however long we played for, and every now and again I'd look to the right of me and to the side of the stage where my family were watching, and there's Pete Doherty, but he's singing every word of the songs that we were singing. So I'm thinking, all right, okay, you're. I didn't realise you'd even heard of us, so to know all the words, you must be a bit of a fan. So after the gig, I approached him, introduced myself, and just said I didn't realise you were a fan. And he said, "Oh yeah, as a kid, I used to love listening to Shed Seven. I used to get my guitar out and learn the songs." So I just said to him, "Look, we've got Rowetta on this new album. Do you want to be part of it?" And he went, "I'd love to." So even before hearing the song that we were thinking of, he said he'd love to do it. So that was an amazing thing to get Peter Doherty on board. And that song sounds ace. It's one of the best songs we've ever written, I think. Um, so that's good. And Laura comes about because we know the Revs quite a lot. I was after this female vocal that sounded really sweet. I kind of gave her. I just said to her, "Can you try and sound a little bit like Kirsty MacColl, who's got such a lovely, sweet voice?" Um, and she just nailed it straight away, which is brilliant. Um, I mean, the song that she's singing on, it's called "Tripping with You," and when I first started writing the words to that, it was kind of like a love song, but the more I was writing for it, the more kind of sappy it sounded and a little bit twee. So I kind of flipped it on its head and made it a bit more like a stalking kind of thing. So thankfully, she still wanted to be involved, even though it became less of a love song. But yeah, if you listen to that song and think stalking rather than love, then you'll get the idea.
You said that in Ecstasy, when you were writing it, and the finished product was how you imagined it was going to be. Does that happen with all the songs, or is it a rare occurrence?
Yeah, they're all different, to be honest with you. I mean, some songs are almost born out of the studio, to be honest. You can get the basic idea of a song, and then you enter the studio to lay it down, and things change dramatically, and it becomes a totally different beast. Um, so yeah, they're all very different, but yeah, I'd say it's about 50-50, really.
Yeah, we've mentioned the album's out next year. You also have two massive homecoming shows in York. Are you looking
Mm.
forward to that?
Yeah, can't wait. I mean, obviously, next year is going to be a really busy year for us. It's our 30th anniversary year since the debut album came out, which is a bit weird because I still only feel about 28. So I don't know how that's happened. But yes, I mean, what a year it's going to be. So the very first week into our 30th anniversary year, we're releasing a brand new set of songs, which is a great thing. Um, we've got a lot to announce next year, but we're going to kind of stagger it so that it's not overwhelming for people because we're doing quite a lot of different things. And obviously, we've been concentrating on pushing the album over the last few months. So, yeah, we've got the two Museum Gardens gigs in York. I mean, I think the last time a proper rock band did a gig in the Museum Gardens in York was in the 70s. So it's a long time coming, which
Yeah,
makes it better for us. It makes it a little bit more special. And the fact it's sold out within about 3 hours over 2 nights is great. Um, and also because we don't play our hometown that much. So to be doing it over a big weekend in an unusual setting just feels right, really. And I think we're going to be announcing a huge tour at the end of next year, but in between that, we're doing quite a lot of other things. So anyone who's interested, just keep your eye on our socials, and you'll find more and more out.
yeah, it all sounds good. You've also got great support bands for them York shows as well.
Yeah, well, obviously the Peter Doherty thing comes about because he sang on one of our songs, so it was an easy in that, and I think he's looking forward to it. And yeah, we've got the lottery winners, Brooke Coombe, Apollo Junction, the Seratones. So yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, it all sounds good. Can you believe it? Well, you said you can't believe it's 30 years since your debut came out. Did you think you'd still be bringing out music 30 years later?
Who knows? The music industry is very fickle, and who knows how you're going to still be able to create art so many years later. I mean, who knows? You know, I remember watching a documentary on the Rolling Stones, and I think in about 1965, Mick Jagger was asked how long left he thought they had, and he said, "If we get another year out of this, I'll be happy." So that would have made it 1966, and look at them; they're still going now. So
Yeah,
anything's possible, but you have to keep coming up with the goods. And who knows? I mean, I could, Ethan, I don't want this to happen, but hopefully it won't. I could get run over by a bus tomorrow, and that might change everything.
Yeah, you never know, do you? Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like the opposite of that, and I'd like to be talking to you in another 30 years' time, celebrating our 60th.
Exactly. Yeah. Me too. Me too. Um, you write songs with guitarist Paul Banks. Most of the songs. Has the songwriting process changed over the years, or is it pretty much still the same?
It's never changed, weirdly. We were discussing this the other day. So me and Paul met when we were 11, and we started probably writing songs together when we were about 13. Um, After bonding a friendship over our love of music, and it's never changed. I remember being 13 and walking around to his house and coming up with melodies over his guitar hooks at 13 years old, and it's still just happening, and it works. So why try and change something that quite clearly just works? You know, that you just, all you're doing is making it more difficult for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a post on Instagram, on Shed Seven's Instagram, of you and Paul in a band when I think it was 1986, your first ever gig. Do you remember that?
uh, Looking at the photographs of that era, it brings back memories, but my memory is awful. I've got a vague memory of being in that room, but I don't have any memory of actually performing or who was there and how well it was received. But it's scary when, you know, a lot of people don't really realize how long we've been doing this for. You know, I mean, we put a lot of groundwork in over a long space of time before we had any type of fame or success. So, you know, looking back at all of that now as a 51-year-old, it feels good that we'd put a lot of groundwork into it and put a lot of time and effort into it. You know, I mean, before we signed a record deal, we would go to so many different places over the country, mostly London, from York, which is in them days was like a 5-hour drive in a transit van. You know, and we'd travel down there to play in a pub in front of about 4 people, and then travel all the way home again straight after it. And that would put a lot of young kids off in bands because that is work and it's hard, and especially when you're not getting any recognition for it. But all that did for us was just make us more hungry, which is good because we're sat here now discussing that.
Do you think some bands coming through expect like all the big stuff straight away?
Yeah, well, that does happen. It's quite rare, but I almost feel a little bit sorry for bands like that because they've not really appreciated the difficulty of getting to that scenario. You know, I mean, I don't believe anybody in any walk of life should get everything easy because it's not how life works. And I think you're much more likely to appreciate what you've got if you've had to put the hard graft in. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of my questions was you formed in 1990, then got a record deal in 93. So within 3 years, hard work, but you've pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, again, we're from York. York certainly at that time, band wise, wasn't the best. You know, there wasn't that much going on in York, so we were always kind of a little looked upon as being a little bit weird. We had the weird hairstyles and the weird fashion sense. That weird band that plays guitar music. But we persevered, and I'm so pleased we did. But we just spent those 3 years just building up a repertoire of songs really that we thought were good enough to present to some record labels. And looking back now, all of that really worked in our favour. But you never know at the time, do you? I mean, I was working in Sainsbury's because I needed to pay my rent, so I needed a job. So I was working in Sainsbury's for probably from 1990 to 92, whilst writing songs like Dolphin and well, a lot of that debut album really. And you never know if it's going to go anywhere. You just play the odd gig here and there and hope for the best. We gained quite a good local following of people, and then we're just in the right place at the right time, which happens to every band really. You have to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So, like, with a band, like you was a big part of the Britpop scene. Does a scene have to be going for a band to get the popularity and stuff like that?
Yeah, yes and no. I'd say it helps if there's a scene. I mean, we're classed as a Britpop band, but before Britpop happened, we were doing stuff. We were actually caught up in a musical cachet called New Wave of New Wave. At first, we were New Wave of New Wave, and then we were Lad Rock, and I think Lad Rock lasted for about 4 months. And I think Lad Rock was only there because Oasis were breaking through, and they were proper lads. So we were Lad Rock for a while, and then we became put under the Britpop banner. But I don't think we're Britpop anymore. I think we're a relevant band that are just doing stuff for this kind of time frame. I think we've written an album that potentially could go down as a bit of a classic.
Yeah, exactly. A few Britpop bands felt like when the scene ended, just fell off, didn't they? But you've stayed there all through those years.
Yeah, well, we've had our ups and downs. Don't get me wrong, but I think the songs that we wrote in the '90s definitely stood the test of time, which means we can still go out and do gigs now and play on Standby and Getting Better and Bully Boy and Disco Down and Going for Gold and Chasing Rainbows, and the list goes on, and we can play all of these songs, and people still come now and absolutely love hearing them. So that's testament to what we did do in the '90s. But the reason I'm saying we're relevant now is the fact that we're releasing brand new material, and that's being introduced into the set lists live, and it doesn't stick out like it's a different band. It still sounds very much like us.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show over a space of time, we've just proved that we're just quite good at what we do, and we just keep doing it, which is great. As a 51-year-old man, it's nice to know that I've managed to kind of spend the majority of my life being able to do something that I really love.
Yeah, yeah. We've mentioned Britpop. Did you get on with the bands on the scene at the time, or was it a big rivalry with a lot of them?
Some more than others. I mean, as I keep saying, we're from York. We still live in York, so we weren't part of any London scene where you'd all go and meet in pubs or clubs. We'd go to London and we'd do what we needed to do and we'd party, but we'd always come home. So we were always kind of on the outskirts of all of that, to be honest. Some bands are nice, some others are a bit up their own arses, so it's difficult, really. You'd mostly bump into these bands at festivals. Throughout the '90s, not as much, but nowadays we do bump into a lot of acts, and everyone just seems a lot nicer than they were then. I think in the '90s, it felt like there was an awful lot of competition. Oh, you got to number 5 in the charts, and we only got to number 7, but we're better than you, so we should have done better than you. There's an awful lot of that going on, which is a bit rubbish, really. It's not necessary because we're all just creating art, and it's for everybody. So I'm not bothered if a band would chart one higher than us in the charts, because I'm more bothered about what Tracy and Kevin are listening to in their house and loving what we've written. That's what's more important to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 1996 was a good year for Shed Seven. Did you have the most hit singles than any other act?
We had the most top 40 UK top 40 chart entries than anyone else that year, yeah, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
So it's quite a good stat, but it feels so long ago now, 1996. We need to do that again.
Exactly. What was it like playing Top of the Pops?
Um, Probably better for the rest of Shed Seven than me. We did it 10 times, and the producer at the time that we were doing it was a big fan of me singing totally live. But the rest of the band could just mime along to the records. So that's all good. I like the fact that I had to sing it live. I thought it added to the performance. But the problem was you'd have to be there at like 8:30 in the morning, and you'd spend the whole day there doing different run throughs for the cameras and then dress rehearsals. So you'd actually do the actual main performance at about 7 o'clock at night in front of the audience. So you'd be there all day, basically hanging around for hours. And because the rest of the band were just miming, they were just in the bar all day getting absolutely hammered. And I had to hold it together because I was singing live. So it was, ask the rest of the band that question.
My next question is, after Shed Seven split, you started Rick Witter and the Dukes. What was that time like?
Well, it was difficult, really. It was a difficult time. It was exciting starting a different project, but I mean, Shed Seven kind of did finish for a while, and it was part of my kind of successful 20s to 30s kind of time, which is a very important time of your life. So it was difficult in the sense that we'd not really made much money off Shed Seven, but I was still being recognised an awful lot. So, you know, I wanted. There's nothing else that I could really do in my life, so I wanted to start a different project. So I started that group, but it got increasingly more difficult whenever we'd play live because we'd be playing a brand new song off a Duke's album. And in between songs, everyone would just be singing for going for shouting for going for gold and chasing rainbows, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. So it didn't last particularly long, but I do have fond memories of that album and writing it and recording it. But I think Shed Seven's the band really.
Yeah, I always feel sorry for musicians that leave bands and start a new band because they never get that same success, do they?
No, they don't. No, I think and Shed Seven isn't just one person; it's a sum of its parts. I think Shed Seven works as a brand rather than as the individuals, and it goes to show I was the singer in the band, and it wasn't as big when you break out and do things on your own. But then talking about Mick Jagger again out of the Rolling Stones, he tried to do that in the 80s. He wanted to go solo, and I think I don't know how true this is, but I don't think it's too far of the mark. He released a solo album called She's the Boss, and it sold literally hundreds of copies, whereas the Rolling Stones sell millions of copies. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy, I know.
Mm.
It's like BDI and stuff like that. They never really.
Yeah, I think it happens to the majority of people. I think maybe one or two artists fall through the net, like your George Michaels and so on. But you know, I think as a rule, the original band is the brand, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Shed Seven got back together in 2007. What was that like? Is it awkward when you get back together, or do you just
No,
get
well,
off straight away?
we all stayed friends. We all lived around the corner from each other. So I think we just decided after about 4 years that we'd all missed playing live. That was the thing that got us all back together. Was the fact that when we're all 13 and 14 years old, we're all picking up instruments to learn them, to get on a stage and show off in front of people. And that's what we ended up doing all the way through Shed Seven. So after about a 4 year break, we just all really wanted to stand on a stage and play. And we had the songs, you know, so we were a bit unsure about how that would go down. We'd stopped for a few years, but then the reaction to us announcing new gigs was incredible, and we sold them all out straight away. We had to add extra gigs on, and then when people started coming to see us, they were all singing every word, and everyone looked like they were having an ace time. So we've not looked back since 2007. It's been amazing, and now, as I say, to come back with two brand new, well, an album 6 years ago of new music, and now this, it only just opens up the whole future. That the future looks really good for us, which is ace. So
Yep.
maybe I will be here talking to you in 30 years' time, Ethan.
Yeah. My next question was, you brought out Instant Pleasure in 2017.
Yeah,
What was it like recording again with Shed Seven?
it was great. Slightly different process. We ended up going to Spain, which is where the producer youth studio was. So we found ourselves quite literally halfway up a mountain, trapped because there was only one vehicle, and that was the producer's. So we couldn't really go anywhere, which worked because there was no distractions. So basically, we found ourselves in a house for about 3 weeks, cramped up, but it made us do it. So even though it was very, very hard work, it was massively worth it, which is why we chose to go back again for this album, because we knew what we were letting ourselves in for. But yeah, I think when you know you've written a solid set of songs, it's exciting to get into a studio and see what you can create out of those songs and what sounds you can achieve, and you know, and where you can take it to the next level up. So if you've got we have like 15 really good quality demos, that we know are structured well enough, and then it's exciting to see where you can take that.
When did you know you was going to record this new album? When did you decide to write the songs and record it?
So a couple of band members left about 2.5, 3 years ago, and we had some gigs we needed to honour. So we got in touch with some friends who we knew were very good musicians, and they jumped on board, which was great. They didn't really have that long to learn our back catalogue, but they did a great job of that. So after we'd done that tour, we just thought, right, well, what's the next step? So we've kind of said to these two guys, you're welcome to be in the band for as long as you want. Why don't we try writing another album? So me and Paul started the writing process March 22. And we spent about 9 months. I think we'd completed the writing side of it by Christmas 22. So probably towards the end of 2022, we started looking at booking studios and booked to go back to Spain. So we recorded it in February this year. And then it's just taken a while because of various life things and the fact that manufacturing now takes a lot longer. We definitely wanted to release it on vinyl, and we were told that that's going to take about 6 months. If you want to release it on vinyl, it's a 6 month turnaround. So hence why it's coming out so long after we'd finished it, to be honest. But I mean, it's been quite exciting building it up over this year. We've been sat on it for a long time, but it's been nice kind of just giving little teasers out there and then presenting people with new songs. Because it's a good time for me, this, when you've written something and you know it's ready but nobody's heard it. For me, it's a great time because I like to get excited about people getting excited. And also, once it's out, it's everybody's and it's not ours anymore, and it means that we'll start getting asked where's the next one, and I'm tired and I don't want to start thinking about the next one yet.
Have you got any stories behind any of the songs on the album that you can share?
Well, I think I always come lyrically at it like I want everyone to be able to understand and feel the same kind of emotions as what I would do when I'm writing it. So I always write about love, loss, death, sex, hate. That's all going on. There's one particular song called Real Love that's kind of a little bit more political. I don't really go down the politics route really within song as a rule because I don't know enough about it and I don't want to trip myself up. But there is one particular song called Real Love that is basically about how rubbish the people are that are in charge of us at the minute and how we don't feel looked after enough and there isn't really any love. So that's, if you listen to that song in that kind of respect, you probably understand it a bit more. I've already discussed the stalking song. I'd say it as a whole, the album's about love, death, sex, hate, stalking, recreation, and ornithology.
So it covers quite a lot then.
Yeah, all the most important things in life.
How do you get inspiration for writing lyrics nowadays?
I'm always got my ear to the ground. I'm always thinking. I used to carry a notepad around with me everywhere, and if I ever heard anything said, it could be anywhere on a bus or anything. If it's an old couple on a bus who'd sat in front of me, if they said something, they could say anything, and it might just inspire me to start a story around it. So I'd always be jotting things down. Nowadays, with technology, you've got your phone, so I'll just put it in my notes. So on my phone, on my notes now, there's just reams and reams of random sentences and phrases. And I'll kind of, if I'm not feeling very inspired, I'll go back to all of that and try and pick something out of that to create a new story. And it always seems to work. Sometimes it's more difficult than others. With this particular album, it all just came together so quickly and easily. It was a bit scary because it's never usually like that. And there's always the possibility of that tap being turned off and then having no inspiration at all. So you've got to grab it with both hands while you can, which I think was what we did last year when we were writing it. And I think we've come up with the goods. So it's all very exciting.
Yeah, is there any Shed Seven song that's got a crazy backstory behind it about how you wrote it or what inspired it?
So there's a song called Magic Streets off the Maximum High album. And people think it's quite a jolly song. It mentions the Early Learning Centre in it. That's actually about a brothel, a supposed brothel in York. So when we were young, growing up, above the Early Learning Centre in the middle of York City Centre, there was this block, this kind of um, I don't know, like a studio-y, housey thing on the top of the early learning centre. Um, and the rumor was that it was where you'd go if you wanted to visit a prostitute. So I wrote a song about that. So it's about losing your virginity to a prostitute, but it's not autobiographical. Just if I can just say that now before people start to wonder. And I never found out for sure whether or not the building was actually used for that or not. It's probably one of these silly things where it just had a red light bulb in there, and that made people go, "Oh, look, that's you know." Um, but yeah, so when people are singing about going to the early learning centre with the money that I lent you, it's not going to buy a kid's toy,
Yeah,
and it
something
and
else.
it and it also says to put your anorak on in that song, and that's not a coat; it's a condom. So I mean, there's lots of songs that we've written that are like that have hidden meanings that people
Yeah,
perhaps really understand. I mean, Ocean Pie is about doing heroin. So when you hear Ocean Pie, it's when I'm singing about what's it like to let the feeling flow. It shakes me cold in the morning when you're feeling low. You're worth your weight in gold. I'm not talking about a person. I'm talking about heroin. But not again. I've never done heroin. It's my perceived thing about what it must feel like to be on heroin through reading about it and watching movies about it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you prefer to write autobiographical songs or songs about anything?
No, just anything really. It's very rare that I would write about me. It's
Yeah.
usually it's usually about other events or made up stories.
Have you ever thought about bringing out an autobiography?
I don't want to bore anyone, Ethan.
I
I
think
mean,
it'd be good, that.
it'd be boring.
I think it'd be good. Um, so nowadays, obviously, you've got the album and the shows and stuff, and guitar music seems to be on the rise again. Have you noticed that?
I have noticed that a lot, and it's great to see. It's been going on for a while, to be honest, but in this current day and age, it's more difficult to discover these artists. I mean, in the 90s, well, in the 80s, independent music was very independent. So you'd have to be knowledgeable about where to go to hear all of this stuff and what to do. And then in the 90s, it all crashed and independent music became the mainstream, and it was all over the place, all over the charts, all over kids' telly programs. And then that kind of went again. Music's very cyclical. So I'm kind of hopeful that it does happen again for these new kids that are learning guitars and wanting to get themselves out there and heard. But I'm a fan of new music. There's a band called Colour TV that I'm really into at the minute. There's a band called the Goa Express that are great. The Rosellas, all of these young kids who are picking up guitars and getting out there and just showing off. And long may that continue.
Yeah, there is a lot of great bands, but they don't, like you said, they don't really get the recognition nowadays, do they? To that in the
No, but
90s.
that's it. But hopefully, just keep pushing, keep knocking at the door, and hopefully someone will let you in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the end of the interview. I know you're busy, so thank you a lot for coming on. It's been great to have you on.
Thank you, Ethan, and good luck with it. And where are you going to put this?
YouTube. It should be on tonight, actually. I'll send you the link if you like.
Are you following me on Twitter?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, just tag me in it, and then I'll retweet it and tell people to go and have a watch.
All right, thank you. Yeah, good luck with the album. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Thank you, mate. Good man. Nice one.
And good luck
Back
with
home
the.
now. Only about 3.5 weeks, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck with the shows next year as well.
Thank you, Ethan, and have a happy Christmas.
Yeah, you too have Christmas and New
Yeah.
Year.
Good man. Cheers, mate. Ta.
Yeah, bye, bye.
Bye.